A little bit too early, but I'm still working my streaming skills, and I'm going to share my screen, and then I'm going to share this. Okay, here we are. Well, today I'm going to talk with you about the small steps you can take to get to conscious behavior around food. And yes, I am aware of starting a little bit too early and also aware of my technical difficulties, but I'm learning on this. I can share a lot about getting conscious action about food obsession. I think that's very important. So the first thing I want you to know is that whatever your circumstances are and whatever your place is with getting conscious about your food obsession, getting to acknowledge your food obsession, or getting to get open about your food obsession, it's not your fault and you're not a failure. If it doesn't work out yet, if you're not able to plan your eating, you're not a failure. You're just going to take these small steps towards freedom. It will be a journey and it will be a process. And every fall down, you will get up. And every time you get up, you will get a little bit stronger. And so I want to tell you what the first small steps can be. And also, I want you to know that you're not a failure, but you're simply learned a defect coping system. You simply worked out something that you thought would work, but doesn't work. Let's do just this little small experiment. Think of a problem. Think of some small problems like you lost your wallet or you have to do an interview somewhere, and think of this and think of what your mind thinks about. That is the first solution. Think about the first thing you want to do and be very honest with it. And probably the first thing you want to do is eat. The first thing you want to do is open a cupboard. The first thing is like, oh, let's see if the answer is in the fridge. That's not a problem. That is your problem, of course, but it's good to see that this is happening. So if I translate it in Dutch, just for the Dutch listener, doe eens dit gedachte-experiment. Denk aan een klein probleem. Je bent je portemonnee kwijt, of je moet naar een sollicitatiegesprek, of je gaat naar een netwerkbijeenkomst en je vindt dat spannend, of het is vervelend, of je bent er stress van. En denk eens aan de eerste oplossing. De eerste manier die jij bedenkt om je zenuwen te kalmeren, om inspiratie te krijgen, om je portemonnee terug te vinden. Waarschijnlijk is het in de koelkast kijken, of even een koekje eten, of iets. So in English again, that's getting aware and that's getting conscious about your coping mechanism, your coping system. So that's getting conscious about it. Ego will sabotage this road to freedom. Ego will try to think like, oh, this doesn't work, the drain, it will not help me. Ego loves to stay in the same place. It doesn't really want to. I see that I have the wrong slides, but it's okay. So I'm sorry for that. Ego loves to stay in the same form and in the same system because it's a little bit afraid for new things because it thinks it dies. So je ego gaat je saboteren. Want je ego heeft het gevoel dat het doodgaat als jij iets anders gaat doen. And for ego, it's no difference between a real death and an ego death. So ego will go and sabotage. But that's what ego does. And that's, well, we will fight it. We will find ways to comfort the ego in other ways than food. So one thing you can do is to create a bottom line. um, to create your own bottom line. And how will we create this bottom line? How will we create this border for us? Hoe kunnen we onze eigen grens, onze eigen bodemgrens creëren? Well, we have to sort of get conscious about what the behaviors and the patterns and the things are that we're really fed up with. We have to think about what we're really done with, which behavior are in our way, which patterns are unhealthy. So, like, think of a behavior that is a trigger for you, like you're opening that cupboard again for the cookies, and you're really fed up with it. So your behavior of opening this cupboard and shoveling these cookies inside your mouth without knowing that it works is a trigger, because you will get sad, you will get angry, you will get frustrated, you feel powerless, and so this behavior is a trigger. So what we're going to do is write down the behaviors or think about the behaviors that are a trigger, and those behaviors and those patterns. So opening this cupboard in with an idea that it will have a solution, or slowing down because you want to eat first, all these patterns, uh, something like, well, that you have to always eat the whole bag of candies or the bag of chips. Like, you can be fed up with it. You can know and see that this pattern is not healthy, but you're powerless over it. But these behaviors we're going to write down, or think about it, or really get down what is our bottom line. And not every behavior and not every pattern has to be our bottom line, but simply those behaviors and those patterns that we really are fed up with. It can be one or two, like getting up in the morning and eating anything that's in front of you without even thinking if you want to eat this or not. It can be really, really tiring. So that's what you're going to write down, and that's what you're going to think about, and that's what you're going to write down as being my bottom line. If I do this behavior, and then we're going to put another action instead of that behavior. So we're going to do a conscious action whenever we see our bottom line, whenever we see ourselves doing things that are going to end up in our behavior that we don't want to do. We're going to put another conscious action. And that conscious action, I'm going to talk about it. So just a little bit translation in Dutch. We gaan onze eigen bottom line maken. En hoe doen we dat? Door te observeren en op te schrijven welke gedragingen, welke patronen triggers zijn voor ons. Waardoor we boos worden, verdrietig, waardoor we heel erg geconfronteerd worden met onze obsessie, met onze voedselobsessie. En het hoeven niet alle gedragingen te zijn, maar we nemen er 2 of 3, of niet alle patronen. 2 of 3, die schrijven we op en we gaan een andere actie in plaats van die patronen doen. So we're starting to get conscious. So what can be those actions? What can be those conscious actions where we replace our trigger actions? I just call it trigger actions to have a simple word. Well, you can think of call a friend, and that's the best action you can actually do, because it gets you out of isolation. It gets you out of the secretness of the food obsession. It gets you out of the ego saying, oh, well, he will judge me, or he will think I'm less than, or whatever. It gets you into contact. It gets you into contact with life. So that's one of the best actions. But I can tell you that's also one that takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage to call a friend and say, hey, I'm not feeling very well here. I am in trouble. Can you just listen to me for a while? Or you make this thing with a friend, and you will just call him and say, oh, I'm not feeling well. Can you talk to me? You can also get a friend on board, before you're going to do this, you're just going to say, hey, I'm doing this, getting this thing with getting conscious about my food. And can you help me? Because I'm stuck sometimes. And if I call you at this weird hours, is that okay? And can you just talk to me? Because I'm in a bad place at that moment. If you're not having the courage yet to call a friend, you can count to 10. We can always count to 10. And you can count to 5. And you can try to get space between the behavior, between the pattern. You get space in between. It's space for a conscious choice. So that's what we're trying to do. So you can also just run out of the door because you're like, oh my God, I'm doing it again. I'm doing it again. I feel this impulse to do something else. So I run away. I just run away. It's flight. I know, but you get some space between your old behavior and your new behavior. If you're really strong-willed, you can also meditate. Meditate and say, hey, I did it. I meditate, but not for an hour, but just 5 minutes or 10 minutes because you want to meditate about this pattern and not avoid the pattern and go out of your body. So you can meditate or you can write in your journal. And there are plenty of other things, other actions you can replace your old behavior. And be very honest with yourself. And in the way that it's okay to fail. If you have written down your bottom line behaviors, and you've written down the conscious actions you're going to do instead of your behavior, you will not succeed all the time. You will have moments of failure, and you will have moments that you think like, oh, it didn't work out. And then ego steps in. And ego is going to say like, you see, you're a failure. You cannot do this. This food obsession will stay with you forever and your whole life. And then you're down the drain again. You're going to start again with the loop and the circle that you don't want to be in. So be forgiving, be loving, be forgiving and loving for yourself, and let the ego be the ego. Let the mind just chatter. It's the mind. You're knowing what you're doing. You really are going to make space between the old behavior and the new behavior. Space for a higher power, space for a friend, space for writing. That's the only thing we're going to do from now. Make space. And you will see that if you just have a little space, you will get a little bit more space and a little bit more space. And then finally, 3 months later, you're like, oh my God, something changed. This behavior is gone. Or, oh my God, it works. 8 out of 10, I'm going okay. I'm doing okay. I'm doing fine. So to translate it a little bit in Dutch. Er zijn heel veel verschillende dingen die je kan inzetten tegenover de patronen die je niet meer wil. De gedragingen die je niet meer wil doen. Het beste is om iemand te bellen. Want dat haalt je uit de isolatie. Dat zorgt ervoor dat je in contact met het leven komt. En dat je niet alleen zit met je probleem. En dat het geheim ervan afgaat. En het grootste probleem van food obsession of welke verslaving dan ook, is dat je het geïsoleerd en vanuit een geheim in stand houdt. We willen dat ego tackelen, we willen onszelf bevrijden. En het beste kan je iemand bellen. Maar daar is moed voor nodig. Daar moet je dapper voor zijn. En ja, dat kost soms tijd. Voor mij duurde het wel een tijdje. For me, it took a while before I really could call a friend. And then I was in program. I was in a 12-step program. So people were used to call each other. And we're used to help each other out. And we're used to, oh, I'm not doing okay. Can you just talk for me for a while? But still, it took me a while before I could call a friend. But I could count to 10 and I could run out of my door. So I did that a lot. And finally, there became some space within my behavior. And for me, my only bottom line was I threw up a lot. And that was my bottom line. So I wasn't counting my calories, or I wasn't counting what I ate, or I wasn't, of course I was also in the cupboard, and I also was in the fridge, and I also was everywhere in the food. But my only bottom line behavior was throwing up. So whatever I did, I didn't want to throw up. So whatever I had this urge to throw up, I could call a friend, or I could do something else, or I go for a run, of course, another coping mechanism. But I was, of course, starting to get conscious about my behavior and conscious about the behavior that I didn't want to have, and replaces for conscious action that I wanted to do. So the throwing up went away. And then because I wasn't hungry anymore that much, and I also had this, and we came later in this podcast, I will tell you about it. I also started with my 3 meals a day. So my food got more regular, got more structure. Still, it wasn't about what I ate. That was free because I knew whenever I'm going to say I can only eat bread or I can only eat healthy or I can never eat candy anymore, I would go and lose control. That was not able for me to do at that moment. Now you will see my cupboard. There's no candy, no chips, no chocolate, and it's not because I'm not allowed to, but it's because there's no craving anymore. And you will say like, oh, jaw drop. Oh my God, that's impossible. It's not impossible, but it's a long road. Took me about, well, I'm 12 years now on this road, and it took me about, I think, 7, 8 years. But the throwing up stopped. My food got more structure. I was able to call friends. I was able to talk about it. And the process gave me way more freedom. And that's what I want to give you. So you're powerless over this obsession. But by acknowledging that you're powerless, you give yourself space. You give yourself space to admit to yourself, to admit to someone else that you have a problem and that you're powerless over it, that you need a power bigger than yourself to get around this problem. And this power bigger than yourself, this higher power, can be anything. It can be a friend, it can be a group, it can be a God if you have a loving and forgiving and caring God. You can also create it yourself. For me, it was was a loving and supporting God, but also the universal energy. And it also became very soon Reiki, became my higher power. I didn't know it then consciously, but when I started the 12-step program, I also started very soon with Reiki. And that was also my higher power without knowing. But you can find your own higher power. And if you do that, if you admit to yourself you have a problem, if you admit to someone else you have a problem and you get help and support, you create space for change. And you create space for conscious actions, space to share, space to start a new routine. And yeah, that's what I hope that you can start doing right now. So, simple things to try and simple routines you can try is a food plan. Um, yeah, and a food plan, it works or it doesn't work. You have to really find out for yourself if you're a food plan person or not. I'm not. If I do like I have to eat this and this and this, and of course you can make variations, but if it's for me, it's too much structured, and it's like some people do also weigh their food, and that's the only thing they can eat. For me, it makes a new obsession. So check food plan if it works for you. If it works for you, like, oh, I'm so happy. I know the whole week what I can eat. I can prepare it. It's what works for me, and I'm not getting obsessed about it. Do it. But I got a total new obsession. So for me, it was 3 meals a day, and if I had a very very busy day, I could eat two small things in between. But it was 3 meals a day. I had to eat those 3 meals a day, and that was what worked for me. Just simply, I could eat anything. I could eat everything. There were no restriction in what I ate. I didn't have this thing because my obsession was also this compulsive control. Like I cannot eat carbs, I cannot eat fat, I cannot eat sugar, I cannot eat this, I cannot eat that. Pizza is a boing, my head will explode. Or I had all this restriction and all these rules about food. So making a food plan for me was an obsession. So getting it totally free was for me the best thing, because I could also try like, hey, pasta, is that really that bad for me? Am I really triggered by this? Or pizza, is it really making me fat, because that was what I think, of course. But it was not interesting. It wasn't the main problem. The main problem was something else, something totally else. Even the food wasn't a problem. Um, the real problem was dealing with life. I made this coping mechanism and hide in food for life. I just didn't know how to handle life. And maybe you recognize that. And yeah, you will get to handle life if you stop by handling your food. The first thing you can try is a trigger list. And of course, you can always ask questions and I will reply them if I have gone too fast or if you don't understand it or if you just want the translation in Dutch. Ask questions, email me, find my website, subscribe, do whatever you need to get more freedom in your food. Okay. Trigger list. Well, this is also something that helped me in the beginning. And it's not a trigger list about behavior, but this is the trigger list about food. You know, if what kind of foods are triggers? And, you know, like for me, chips and candy and um, all those things, cake, were triggers. So in the beginning, I just made sure they were not there. They were not in my home. And then you say like, yes, but in the beginning, I gave myself this experiment to try and what worked and what doesn't work. And also, you know, trigger also was pasta. I was thinking that that was a trigger, but later I found out that that wasn't not a trigger. And now also cookies and chips and chocolate are no triggers anymore. But it started out as being my trigger list. So you can write down on your trigger list what foods are triggering my obsession, what foods are making me want more, what foods are making me think like, oh, but now I need to run 4 kilometers because or miles because it's I ate too much or it's making me fat or I cannot handle this food. So see what food are triggers, and then maybe you also have safe food. So whenever you're in a day that's like challenging, maybe you just try your safe food and leave out your trigger foods. And then again, it's a process. And if it makes a new obsession, you just dump it. You just try and dump. Try and dump, try and dump. You know, this doesn't work. Okay, try something else. Oh, this doesn't work. Oh, I try something else. But do try it for a while. We have this ego that doesn't want to change. That's like, no, 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 you're not going to do it. You're a failure. You're not good enough. So we just have to get over those obstacles a little bit all at once, and then you think like, oh, trigger list, I did my ego thing, it's still not working. Okay, but it can be helpful. And then party planning. Well, party planning, we all have parties in life. You know, you go with colleagues to some party, or you have something for your work, or there's a birthday party, or there's somebody getting 50 or 25 years working with you. And there's parties, and parties of food, and parties of alcohol and drinks. And also, for me, alcohol was also triggered to just woo, get over the place. So I also alcohol as well. You don't have to do that, of course, but for me, it worked fantastic because I've found what detox was. I found was stopping something that I found out how it worked with getting rid of addiction with alcohol, which was easier for me to quit. And then this whole roller coaster that starts, and with food, it is also the same roller coaster you're getting into. And also, my behavior changed because I didn't get out of control anymore. You know, I didn't let go that much, and I wasn't gone for like 2 days because of my alcohol. So I stopped that as well. But you don't have to do that. So at parties, for me, parties were like, oh my god, yeah, temptation island. And I couldn't handle it because I couldn't handle life, and I couldn't handle food, and I couldn't handle drinks, and oh my god, all those people, I couldn't handle people either. So that was like, oh yeah, that was hell actually. And also when the first couple of weeks that I started alcohol, I just avoided parties a little bit because I couldn't deal with it until I just asked for support asked for support and said, "Hey, how you're dealing with how you're dealing with parties? What are you doing?" And then they said, "Party planning. Plan your food, plan your drinks, and also think about what you can bring to the party. What can I bring? Not what can I take, but what can I bring? And not like food or drinks, but what can I bring as a person? What can I bring to the conversation? What can I bring to entertainment? And if you're an introvert person, how can I listen to people? What can I bring to the party, and not what can I take, or can I be there only in isolation and fear? No, what can I bring? And it helped me. I thought about it, and then you're going to the party in a whole different way. You're going conscious, and you're going to act conscious. And also you can ask, like, what kind of food is there, or who will be there, how can I plan the food? Is it a buffet, or is there just one meal, or is there no meal? So you can plan it, and that's really going to help you to get conscious at parties, and also to not let it make escape, so that you're going to the party to be there and not to escape somewhere. So yeah, I hope that will work, and I think that I can do trigger list party planning in a whole new podcast. Food plan. I told you already, like, if it works for you or if it doesn't work for you, you have to find out yourself. Foodplan, mensen, als het voor je werkt, doe het. Als het niet voor je werkt, stop er alsjeblieft mee. Maak het niet een nieuwe obsessie. Dat is het niet waard. Get other people involved. If you're having a food plan and it's a very strict food plan, maybe you can share it with somebody. Maybe you can have the same friend that you call whenever you do weird behavior. Get him involved in your food plan if he doesn't want it. Try it and dump it. And my experience, I told you, for me, it doesn't work. For me, it's a totally new obsession. And no, I have to get it. I have to let my food be free. 3 meals a day works for me very much, and keep it simple. And I could eat whatever I wanted as long as it were 3 meals a day, 3 separate meals a day. Like, I had this clock. Between 9 and 11, I could do my breakfast. Between 12 and 2, I could do my lunch. Between 5 and 8, I could do my dinner, because I needed this time frames, because getting out of bed sometimes was a trouble as well. When I started working consciously on my food obsession, I had no work. I couldn't work. I couldn't really do my part of society. I was totally isolated. I didn't know it at the time. I got conscious when I got into the program. I was totally isolated. I was totally lost. I was this sort of ball of energy, naive energy that had no control, had no power, was totally powerless, totally out of control, isolated and lost. I guess I was very lost. But this was my gift from God, I guess. My gift from the universe, to get in this program and to get deep in, because I had no work, I had no friends, I had nothing in my agenda, and I was also very afraid of that space and that nothingness. So for me, I needed this time frames to eat in, so that I wouldn't eat all day, or that I would eat nothing all day, but that it was simple. Okay, between 9 and 11, I do breakfast, and I set my clock. I set my alarm clock. I will wake up before 11. I will eat my breakfast, whatever it is. If it's candy bar, it's a candy bar, whatever. I eat it, and then I do my lunch, then I do my dinner. And it got well, over time, it evolved, of course, but I still have this 3 meal a day rule, and it works. It works for me. So keep it simple. Yeah, I talked a little bit about triggers and trigger lists. I think I will make this whole new episode, maybe the next episode will be about triggers and making a trigger list, because while I was talking about it, I got more and more and more and more things to share, more information. So yes, next time will be about trigger lists. Party planning. What can you bring? What can you get? What can you offer? What can you give to the party? Dus wat kan jij brengen aan het gezelschap? Aan conversatie, of aan juist luisteren, of aan er gewoon zijn. Wat kan jij geven in plaats van nemen? Vraag wat er is voor eten. Is het een buffet? Is er avondeten of is het alleen maar gewoon snacks? Vraag erover. Maak het duidelijk. En zorg dat er iemand is die weet dat je naar dat feestje gaat. Bel daarover van tevoren. Deel wat je angsten zijn. Deel waar je mee zit. So get support. Share with someone. Call a friend about this party and tell why you're nervous. I have to think about this one time when, for the first time, I had to go with my colleagues to camp for a weekend or for a week, I don't know. And I was really terrified. And a friend of mine said, "Hey, what's going on? What's going on?" I said, "Well, actually, to be honest, I'm totally terrified for this camping, because there will be alcohol, there will be food, there will be people, and they don't know the problems I have around this subject, and I will be alone." And by sharing, it made me laugh, like, oh my God, I'm just this sort of lost child, scared of people, scared of the conversations, scared of what I can bring, scared of what they are going to say, like, "Oh, you don't drink alcohol, what's going on?" And then at the moment, when it occurred, there was no problem. Nobody asked about it. Nobody cared. I controlled. I was conscious, and I could make conscious decisions, because of course there was pizza, of course there were croissants, of course there was plenty. But because I shared it with a friend before, I got to plan it, and I got to get beyond the fear and beyond the ego that said, like, "Oh, you're going to be isolated, you're going to be alone." So it helps to talk about it with somebody before you get there, because it makes clear how you want to plan it and how you want to party. So for now, this is the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you could be there, and I will find out the live stream things a little bit better. Next time I will be at 14th of February. And if you want more help, you can visit my website, or you can call me, or you can email me, and I can help you. But you can also try it for yourself, to try a 12-step program. There's lots of online meetings. There's also just face-to-face meetings. For me, it was a very, very, very big first step into getting recovery and into getting to conscious behavior. And then for now, much success and much love on your road to freedom from food obsession. And next live will be on 14th of February, and that will be the Day of Love in the Netherlands. It's the Day of Love. So start to love yourself and show up for this podcast, for this episode. And please contact me whenever you have your own subject. I can talk about it, or I can share about it, or whatever. I want you to get out of this isolation and to get out of thinking that you have to do it alone. You have to do it by yourself, but you don't have to do it alone. Love you, and see you next time. Bye-bye.